How's it going, everyone? Yosef back here with another video, and I hope you're having an amazing week so far. Today we have a 2023 Mercedes GLC 300 Coupe, and I'm really excited about going through this one because it's an interesting car. And those of you who know me know that I love interesting cars. But first, before we get into the details about this car, we've got to understand what it is. Now, Mercedes forever has been the brand to buy if you wanted to show that you've got status and that you've done well outside of obviously Rolls-Royce and Bentley and some of the other uber luxury companies. But between the Germans, you know, BMW and Audi, they were great. They're more driver's cars, they're more fun and exciting to drive. But Mercedes, they've always been the ones who are luxurious and the ones that kind of focus on that status. And so today we are going to find out, is Mercedes still as luxurious and awesome as they have always been over the years, or have they gotten a little watered down with the GLC 300? Well, are you ready? Let's go find out. Now, to understand this car, we need an analogy, and I love a good analogy, so hear me out. The analogy that I've got for you today to better understand this car is shoes with suits. Now, I know you're probably thinking, Yosef, you're off your rockers here, but hear me out, because a car like this is different and interesting. You'll notice that you've got this sloping roofline. It's not a traditional SUV, even though it sits higher up from the ground and it looks very much like the standard GLC. So what has happened here? Why has Mercedes done this? And why do we have this coupe-looking design on an SUV? Well, for that, we have to take a look at shoes. Now, traditionally, when you walk around with a suit and you want to get all dressed up and look fancy, you get something like this. You get a proper dress shoe made by a nice company that looks great and sharp and just completes the picture when you're wearing a suit. And when you see somebody walking around with a nice dress shoe, with a nice clean-cut suit, you think, wow, that person's doing well. They're looking really sharp. But today, that's changed. People are taking these and they're ditching them. And they're going for something like this. You know, a sneaker with a suit now looks cool. And I don't understand that. I'm not the most trendy guy in the world. So take that for what it's worth. But now people are wearing suits with these kinds of things. And to me, that is exactly what's happened to the SUV market. A lot of people are saying, let's ditch the old boxy shape. Let's ditch the traditional style and let's make a coupe design. Let's make that sporty sort of car-like design and add it into the SUV lifestyle. And well, that's what we have. But I don't understand it. I'm not the coolest and trendy guy. So for me, I'm gonna go pick up my dress shoe and I'll stick to this moving forward. But now let's get into all the details about it. Well, this Mercedes GLC 300 started around $58,000, but this particular one is loaded with options. It's got all the AMG special stuff and it's got some really cool tech, and we're going to talk about that as we go forward today. But to kick things off, we already talked a little bit about the styling of this car, and for me, to be honest with you, I'm not a huge fan of these coupe-like body designs. I think if you're going to get an SUV, you shouldn't go for a compromised sort of exterior shape. If you're already going for the boxy styling, you should go all out and have all the space in the world. But I know it's trendy, I know it's cool, and people do like this, so take it for what it's worth. But to kick things off, off, I really do like what Mercedes has done with their front end. I think it's very tidy and neat, and it looks good on a lot of their performance cars, and their headlights are really cool. Now, if you take a look at them, they also have a lot of dimension to them, and they're really high performance lights. And the only way I know that is, well, it says high performance right there. But other than that, they are really nice. The only thing that I have to criticize the styling for of the Mercedes brand overall is they're starting to get a little dull and generic. There isn't anything that really stands out about them. They kind of get lost in a parking lot. They've got a really nice character line over here, but other than that, there isn't really anything super distinctive. Even the back of the car, you could probably mistake it for something else. And that to me is just unfortunate, because back in the day, Mercedes used to have such beautiful styling, and that was one of the things that really stood out about them. These days, they're getting a little bit more generic looking, and to me, not as exciting. A couple great things about the styling though is, well, you've got that giant three-pointed star over here, but you've got a really nice grille. I love what Mercedes has done with these. They look sort of three-dimensional and very cool, and it's all open because, well, the engine needs a lot of air. It's got a 2-liter turbocharged engine and puts out about 255 horsepower, which is not a lot, but it is enough for a car like this. And if we take a look over here at the grille, there's also an opening that channels air all across the body of the car. Unfortunately, this part is plastic and that is not functional, but other than that, it's not too bad with the way that cars have been going these days with the plastic grills. This one actually looks pretty good. Now, taking a look at the rims, this particular GLC 300 has an upgraded AMG styling package, and that comes with these really nice Y-spoke wheels. Those are some of my favorite looking stock wheels that you can get on a car. I think they look really cool outside of what Alfa Romeo has, but in this case, it looks great. Now, moving on to the rear of the GLC 300, you'll notice that it is very simple and straightforward. There isn't anything really exciting pointing out here, but the one thing that I've got to give a lot of credit to Mercedes for is this badge over here. Now, you'll probably say to yourself, why is that? But this badge is where the backup camera is housed, very much like my Golf R, and something that I wish every manufacturer would do. If you pop this up, that's how you release the trunk, and it's also where the backup camera pops out of, so it doesn't get all dirty and grimy like most other backup cameras in cars. But other than that, there isn't really a whole lot notable in the back of the car, except for one thing. You look a little bit further down and you see, wow, that's a really nice exhaust, but it's not real. It's just plastic, and the real exhaust is underneath, which to me is a little odd. I find that to be, you know, kind of a poser thing. I wish they would have just kept that as a real exhaust and not had to point it out the bottom, but nobody asked me. Now, where this car really shines is on the interior. And if we open the door, you're greeted with an absolutely beautiful door card. And this is one of the things that I think Mercedes does such an exceptional job at. You know, when you look at the car, it just gives you this wow factor. Look at all the stitching and soft touch materials here. And it's really nice that you've got this piece of aluminum over here with your seat memory and the seat adjustments. I love it when you've got that on the door and you don't have to go into a whole bunch of menus to be able to go and find it. You also have your heated seats. There isn't any cooled seats in this car, but you have this Burmaster sound system, which is so cool. I love the speaker grill over there. And there's a lot of ambient light, which you can't really see right now, but it's hidden up there and all throughout the door card, and at night it looks so nice. Now, moving into the rest of the interior, take a look at these seats. They are absolutely stunning, and these are the really nice sort of AMG sporty seats. It's an upgrade from the regular ones. You've got some Alcantara in here. You've got the leather stitched, and of course you've got the ability to have that leg extender that I really like on cars. And overall, you take a look at it and it just looks really, really nice. Now this GLC 300 has a bit of an older interior. The new 2024 models have all the new screens, so this would all be just one giant screen area instead of having a separate gauge cluster and an infotainment screen. But to be honest with you, I don't think that's a drawback here. I think it looks really cool and modern, and the steering wheel is really nice. Mercedes has done a great job of, again, having these nice soft touch materials, the Alcantara on the steering wheel with the leather, and you've got real metal around the buttons, and they all feel really high quality and very nice. So from that perspective, even though this is not an entry-level model for Mercedes, but it's one of the lower models, they've done a really nice job at keeping it classy. Now, taking a look at the dash, it is really nice. I love these air vents. I think they've done a great job at that, and that's one of the hallmarks for Mercedes for a while now. And the fact that you've got physical buttons over here, and these are toggle switches that feel very premium, I think adds so much to the interior. And I love this cascading wood that you've got in the center console. I think it's just so classy, and I love that you've got a touchpad here. There's some really cool things here that have kind of gone away with the newer models, unfortunately. And this is one of the things that I really love about luxury cars, is that you still have physical buttons and you still have a really nice design. They've thought that out really well, and it just looks great overall as a package. Now, your cup holders are hidden under here, which is really great. So if you don't want to have them visible, you can always close that up and not have to worry about them. And in the armrest, you've got, again, some really great storage here. It's quite deep, and you've got some USB charging, which really makes things easy, and it's USB Type-C, so it's nice and modern, and will fit with everybody else's cell phones and new devices. And the floating screen here is not too obstructive. It's not anything too exciting, but it does look nice, and it's a very high quality screen. The colors are really great. The black levels are phenomenal, and I think they've done a good job. And obviously the newer models are going to have a newer screen and will probably be even better. But overall, the interior of this car is really nice. I truly like the way that it looks, and to me it does feel very special, and especially if you get it in different colors. The only thing I wish they had was a heads-up display. Unfortunately, this one doesn't have it, or a panoramic sunroof. You've got a standard one, but other than that, it's a beautiful spec and a really nice interior. I have to say, I also really like the fact that you've got this rimless mirror over here, and you've got the sunglass holder, which is awesome. Not enough cars have those, and I wish that most of them did, but the GLC 300 has it, which is awesome. One other cool touch about this car, and I apologize that this is a little dirty, but there's a plastic on here and I don't want to take it off, is you've got these illuminated metal door sills that say Mercedes-Benz, and I love that. Those are some of the really cool details that I wish every car had, and makes you feel just a little bit more special. And of course, you've got the aluminum pedals. That also adds a lot of just excitement when you take a look down there. And of course, you've got the ambient lighting down there as well, which makes things really cool. Moving on to the back of the car, one of the great things about this particular one is those same beautiful quality materials you get in the back as well. You've got the same leather back here, the Alcantara in the middle. You've got obviously the Isofix sort of anchor points if you wanted to put a car seat in here. And the seats just look really, really nice, and they're super soft and plush and comfortable to sit on. And you've got a really nice center arm rest over here. And if you open it up, you've got a little bit of storage, but you also have some very cool cup holders, which to me are a little over-engineered and might break, but they are cool, and it's a nice way to get around the fact that when people are sitting back here and they want to put their arm down, they don't want to have to put their elbow in a cup holder. So it hides them, and you get a pass-through, and you get an armrest, which is kind of neat. Now, one thing to note back here is this is not a huge SUV. It sort of sits in with the BMW X3 and the Audi Q5, but I would expect at this price point for this type of vehicle to have your own set of climate control vents back here. Here we don't have that. We just have the vents, but we don't have our own separate climate controls or heated or cooled seats back here. That is one thing that I think is a big miss. But other than that, again, you've got some really nice pockets for storage. It looks great back here, and you've got the same beautiful door card that you had in the front, even with the soft touch materials up at the top here, which you rarely get on a lot of cars in the back seats, and that beautiful Burmester sound system grille cover, which to me is really awesome. Now, moving on to the trunk, this is what makes this really interesting. Again, we push this up. It's an electronically opening trunk, which is great. Of course, it has to be for this price point, but you've got a really nice sized trunk. It is sort of uneventful back here, but if we take a look, you've got a locking mechanism over here. So if you wanted to store something under the trunk, you could do that, and you can lock it to make sure nobody gets in there. And there's actually quite a lot of space, even though you've got just a very small spare tire in there. I'm not sure what that rag is, but you've got a considerable amount of space back here. And of course, you've got a little cover that will cover everything up when you don't want anyone to see what's back here. And you've got the seats that fold down in a really nice way. You've got 3 different sections, which to me is always great. It gives you a little more flexibility. If you've got car seats, you have the ability to fold down one section versus another and still keep up the middle. And that to me is really nice. One other thing to note back here, we've got 2 buttons at the top of the trunk. If you press that, you can close the trunk, obviously, but if you press the locking button, it allows you to close and lock the doors, so you can walk away and not have to worry about locking the car again later. Just one last thing to note about the trunk, because you've got this sloped roof line, you'll see you're robbed of a little space back here. If this were the regular GLC, it would probably go up a little bit more and you have a little bit more interior space, but that is one of the sacrifices you make to be trendy and cool. So that's just something to consider if you are getting a car like this. If you're getting the coupe design, you're going to lose a little bit of space in the trunk. It is ample space for most people and will probably do a great job. It's just not going to be as tall, or you'd be able to fit as many boxy items in the trunk as you might want to. Now, before we go on our drive, I did want to talk about this infotainment system just a little bit because, well, it is a touchscreen, and of course, it is very responsive and easy to use, but you also have the ability to use this touchpad, and that to me is really cool because Lexus tried to use a touchpad a few years ago. That didn't work very well, but in this case, having the ability to go and play around with this and actually use it to click and have a home button there and a back button and a next track and previous track, it really does help make it easy to use. And of course, you've got all the buttons over here. It allows you to change your drive modes, your auto stop start, you've got your memory and parking sensors. And the one good thing about this car is that you've got amazing parking cameras. Now, if we take a look at the camera system, you've got so many different angles that you can use, and that to me is really awesome. On a car like this, you definitely should have it, but not every car in this class has such a robust camera system, and the cameras themselves are excellent. They're high quality, they look great, and that is one of the party pieces I think about this car is the technology is really great. The only thing that probably would have been a little bit better is if they didn't have such a big sort of bezel around the screen and it was really full screen. But other than that, it is really nice to have a great camera system. And I did want to mention also in the digital display here, you can have the map. And that's not something you get on every car. And there is a really cool thing about this. Because it's a digital gauge cluster, you have the ability to play around with the information in here. And I love the fact that you have these sort of touch scroll pads. It reminds me of my old Blackberries that I used to have a long time ago. So it lets you just kind of feel a little bit more cool when you're playing around with all the things in there and customizing your screens. But otherwise, the experience in here in terms of what you get and how everything feels is really nice. And I have to say, Mercedes has done a much better job improving the quality in here. There are a few things that still are a little cheap. The trim pieces here are not super tight, but everything feels really, really solid, which, you know, you couldn't say a few years ago. Things sort of were a little bit cheaper, but now there's a little bit less creaking. Everything seems to be relatively well put together. There are a few cheap feeling pieces in here, but it's expected for sort of an entry-level SUV. All right, now it's time to go for a drive. Okay, so we're gonna go on our drive, but I did want to mention a couple things. We've got these metal paddle shifters over here, and to shift into gear, we actually have this stalk that comes off the steering wheel that allows you to put it into reverse, neutral, drive, and you just press in on it to park, which actually is kind of cool. I know back in the day, this was a very popular thing on pretty much every car from the 80s. You always had a steering shifter that you got to use, but that sort of went away, and now they sort of clean up all the cluttered center console areas by going back to stuff like that or buttons, but I really do like the way they put it over here. It makes it super easy to use. So we're gonna pull away and just go for a little drive, and you know, I want to talk a little bit about who this car is for, because you know, you get into a car like this and, well, it looks very nice. It's got a beautiful interior, it's got a nice exterior, it's an interesting looking car because it's a coupe. Let's talk about who this is for. This car is not a sporty car by any means. So you're not going to get in this car and feel a great surge of power and feel like you can take over the world and go on the track and put some really great lap times. That is not what this car is for. It's designed for somebody who wants a very luxurious feeling car, wants to get into Mercedes, but doesn't want to spend a lot of money on the GLE or GLS, and perhaps doesn't want something that's as harsh riding as a BMW X3 or an Audi Q5, for example. And I think Mercedes has done a really good job at that. It's a beautiful looking car. It drives really nicely. It's very quiet. It's very comfortable. It's not as quiet as you would hope for a Mercedes. You do hear a little bit of wind noise and tire noise coming in, but overall, it's a very comfortable and sort of relaxing place to be. The one knock that I've got on Mercedes with this particular car is visibility, because, well, it's got that coupe design, which is expected. You're going to have sort of hampered visibility, but the window in the front is a little small. You've got these nice sized wing mirrors over here, which are nice, but you've got these huge pillars, which take up a lot of space. And when you're trying to navigate a left and right turn and you're looking out, you know, a lot can get blocked by your visibility here. And that to me is a bit unfortunate. But other than that, it is a really nice place to be. It is very dark in here, but the ambient lighting at night is just spot on. And if I had the car a little bit longer, I would have shown you that, but it's a really cool sort of nice set of ambient lighting around the car. And overall, it does drive very well. Now, it's not very powerful. It only has about 255 horsepower. So if you're planning on passing people and you like a lot of power, this is not going to be the car for you. But driving it, again, is good enough. You don't need a lot of power in a car of this size. It gets along very well. You can merge easily. It's got just enough power to kind of get you where you want to be going. And so I think that's one of the great things about the GLC is it kind of does a lot very well. It's not a sporty or aggressive car. It blends in sort of with its styling. It's not shouting at you, oh, look at me, I've got a really sort of fancy car. Outside of that three-pointed star, if we took that away, this car wouldn't really stand out in a crowd. And so for people who want to just drive a luxurious, comfortable car that want to have, in this case, a really great sound system and a lot of nice buttons to touch, this is sort of the perfect car for you. I do sort of prefer having the regular GLC 300 instead of the Coupe, but that's my preference. But for the price, for $58,000 Canadian when you bought it new, you got a really nice car. Now the price obviously went up considerably if you added all the options like you've got in this car, and you could spend close to $80,000 for all of this. But you know, for getting the brand, for getting the Mercedes badge and all the equipment that you get here and the luxurious feeling of the car when you're driving it and how comfortable these seats are, it's not bad value. So I think overall it's a great car for the money, especially if you get it used. You can get quite a bit of a discount off of what somebody would have paid brand new for this car. And to be honest with you, it's held up really well. The Alcantara on the seats and the support and all the buttons and surfaces, they all feel really nice. They don't feel like they've aged considerably, and it still looks really modern with the beautiful screens that you've got in the car and all the cameras and tech. So overall, it's a great car. But again, you have to be someone cool and trendy to understand it, which I am not. So I would still stick with a regular GLC 300. Anyways, that's my review for you today. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.